Occasionally, photos that appear harmless and pleasant have backgrounds that are really dark and menacing. It's possible that a smiling family portrait conceals some of the worst periods in recorded history. The 10 seemingly ordinary photos that reveal sad and gloomy backstories when you go a bit more are included in this video. Number 10. Omagh Bombing, 1998. A man holds his similarly cheerful son on his shoulders and smiling for the camera with sporting a bright yellow sweater. These are a couple of enthusiastic Spanish visitors to Omagh, Northern Ireland. On a crowded street, they stand in front of a red automobile that seems harmless. In 1998, red automobile was loaded with about 500 pounds of explosives made of fertilizer, which were set to go off just moments after the picture was taken. The Real Irish Republican Army, an IRA splinter group that disagreed with the ceasefire that the IRA had agreed upon earlier that year, was behind the terrorist attack. 29 people would die, 220 would be injured, and the explosion would cause indignation on a national and worldwide scale. The photographer would sadly pass away, but the two in the picture would amazingly survive. Number 09. David A. Johnston. With his legs extended in front of him and a notebook and pen resting on his lap, David A. Johnston beams broadly at Harry Glicken, the videographer and former pupil. He has a carefree, yet animated manner. He ought to be. He is a volcanologist researching Mount St. Helens, which is rumbling. Mount St. Helens eruption would kill Johnston 13 and a half hours later. His final words were, "Vancouver, Vancouver, this is it," which went live over the radio to the nearest U.S. Geological Survey office. His remains were never located. That day, Glicken was supposed to be on duty, watching the volcano. However, he unexpectedly switched shifts with Johnston because Glicken needed to go to an interview. Devastated by the news of the explosion and Johnston's death, Glicken spent hours searching for survivors with helicopter crews before they would not let him go. Strangely enough, years later, Glicken would perish in another volcanic eruption in Japan. Number 8. Black bear in the woods. A 300-pound black bear can be seen in the forest in the photograph. The bear appears to be following the photographer from behind a fallen log at a distance of about 100 feet. Darsh Patel, a 22-year-old student at Rutgers University, took the picture with his phone while out on a hike at West Milford's Upshaw Preserve with 4 other classmates. The students decided to separate when, regrettably, the bear started working after them. One student was missing from the group when they regrouped. Darsh Patel. 4 hours after police arrived on the location, Patel's body was found. The bear he had taken a picture just seconds before had mauled him. This ominous picture and puncture marks would also be found on his phone when it was recovered. Number 7. Tyler Hadley. The image is blurred, as if the photographer had adjusted the camera during the capture. 2 males are seen in the picture holding an orange cup up to the camera. One of them has a shaved head. Any house party may have produced the image. However, Tyler Hadley, the man holding the orange cup aloft, killed his parents, Blake and Mary Jo Hadley, earlier that day while under the influence of ecstasy and using a clawed hammer. The celebration continued upstairs in the house while their bodies lay draped in family heirlooms that reminded Tyler of his parents and wrapped in towels. Since he was 10 years old, Tyler had a history of verbally threatening to kill his parents, becoming enraged anytime they would discipline him or exercise their parental authority. Ultimately, he made the party of the century promise on the day they were killed. In noon, he posted on Facebook saying, "Party at my crib tonight." Maybe. Since his parents were well known for being stern, his classmates did not find him credible. However, he uploaded the same message at 8 p.m., "Party at my house, new." He began informing everyone about his terrible deed at the party. Most who heard him either departed or assumed he was lying. Michael Mandel, his closest buddy, was seeing the bodies upstairs. They then posed for this notorious picture. After Michael eventually left the party, Tyler's offense was reported to the police by word of mouth. The morning following the celebration, Tyler was taken into custody and given a life sentence. The Hadley house was later demolished. Number 6. Dutch Girls of Panama. A pair of youthful ladies strike a selfie against Panama's untamed landscape. The two females are Dutch hikers on the El Pianista path, Chris Kremers and Lisanne Froon. On April 1st at 11 a.m. they started their hike. Badly, they failed to show up for an appointment on the 2nd April, and the girls' parents no longer received the daily SMS they had been receiving. Parents and a thorough police search arrived in Panama on April 6. For 10 days, the woodland would be searched. There was nothing discovered. A woman handed in a blue backpack 10 weeks later. Froon owned the bag, which contained their phones and other personal items like a camera. There was evidence on the phones that emergency numbers had been called just hours after the girls set out on their hike, but the calls were unsuccessful due to poor service. After Froon's phone died on April 4th, Kremers' phone would repeatedly switch on between April 5th and April 11th, but each time, the wrong pin would be entered or none at all. 90 flash pictures were captured on the camera in total darkness, deep in the bush, between 1 and 4 in the morning. In one unsettling photo, Kremers' hair is covered in blood on the back of her head. Other remains, including a foot inside a boot and a pelvis, were found 2 months after the backpack was found. These were later DNA tested and confirmed to belong to Chris Kremers and Lisanne Froon. What happened to them remains a mystery today. Number 5. The Red-Haired Woman. The image is of a man climbing on California's Cold Spring Trail in Montecito. There's a burst of crimson on the cliffs behind him. Sailor Gilliams has hair that is this red. Gilliams and her buddy Brendan Michael Vega had hiked later in the day. Because they lacked the necessary equipment and their cell phones could not provide enough light to see the way in the dark, they ended up slipping. While Gilliams shattered both of her ankles and her wrist, Vega only hurt his arm. After going for assistance, Vega fell 20 to 30 feet, 6 to 9 meters off a ledge, and died from his wound. Gilliams was left on his own. She would lie there all night until Gilliams would eventually be found unconscious and laying on the rocks by the men climbing. After contacting emergency services, she was transported via airlift. You'd make it through the trauma. Number 4. Daylenn Moke Pua. Daylenn Pua traveled to Waianae, Oahu, Hawaii to see his grandma. He had expressed to her his interest in trekking the Stairway to Heaven, also known as the Haiku Stair. Anyone found hiking this trail after it closed to the public would be considered trespassing. His grandma forbade him from doing so and threatened to have him locked up if he did. He boarded a bus on February 27, 2015, and set out to ascend the Stairway to Heaven. Daylenn sent his grandmother pictures he had taken on the hike. He vanished from view forever. One of the images, which included a man in the distant backdrop, was examined after his disappearance. It appears that he is trailing Daylenn. The man's family requested that anyone who knows the man come forward and offer aid to the public. What happened to him and who the weird man in the picture is still a mystery. He or his remains have never been located. Number 3. Jolee Callan. 18-year-old Jolee Callan, wearing an oversized red shirt, climbs up a sheer cliff face to capture the breathtaking view of the Pinhoti Trail in Cheha State Park in Delta, Alabama. She had just hiked there with her ex-boyfriend, Lauren Bunner, 20, when he shot her twice in the head with a Ruger Bearcat revolver and threw her body off the cliffside. Later, he turned himself in and called the police, claiming to have killed his ex-girlfriend. The two had dated for 10 months before Jolee ended their relationship because Lauren was controlling and wouldn't let her hang out with her friends. Even after splitting up, they stayed in touch frequently. Together, they even owned a dog. Lauren invited Jolee to the walk where he would kill her 2 months after their split. Lauren Bunner received a 52-year jail term. Number 2. Tina Watson. Scuba divers off the stunning Queensland coast take a group photo. A stiff, prone person lies on the water floor behind them. It would later be determined that this was Tina Watson, who had been killed by her husband. Tina Watson and her spouse, Gabe, were in Queensland for their honeymoon. They made the decision to explore the well-known and difficult SS Yongala wreck on the day of her passing. The dive business recommended a guided dive for the excursion, but the two declined as they were not qualified for such a dive. Tina encountered difficulties during the dive and plummeted almost 30 meters, almost 100 feet, to the ocean below. Gabe stated that he attempted to save his wife, but he was unable to go far enough to assist her because of an ear issue. After 40 minutes of CPR, she was declared dead when she was brought on board. Foul play was suspected due to Gabe's inconsistent explanations and the fact that, before to their marriage, he had asked Tina to increase her life insurance and designate him as the sole beneficiary. He was first accused of manslaughter in Queensland, but his charges were later dropped after he was accused of plotting the murder in his own country, United States. Number 1. The dating game. There are two people in the picture, a woman and a man, standing next to each other. The image is a still from a well-liked 1970s television program called The Dating Game. Cheryl Bradshaw was the name of the woman. Rodney James Alcala was the man standing next to her. Rodney was in the middle of a murderous rampage when he made an appearance. His killing spree spanned from 1977 to 1979. He would repeatedly strangle his victims until they lost consciousness, at which point he would kill them. This method of torture would be repeated over and over. One person called him a murdering machine. Although the precise number of his murders is unknown, he was apprehended and found guilty of 7. He won the date with the bachelorette Cheryl Bradshaw, who declined, calling him creepy. He would go on to murder 3 more women after this appearance, and some theorize that the rejection was a motivating factor. He appeared on The Dating Game as a successful photographer who got his start when his father found him in the darkroom at the age of 13, fully developed. Between takes, you might find him skydiving or motorcycling. And there you have it, 10 images that prove you should never judge a picture by its cover. From tragic events to sinister secrets, these ordinary-looking images hid some extraordinary and disturbing truth. Thanks for joining me on this journey into the darker side of the visual world. If you're feeling brave, be sure to like and subscribe for more content that will make you question everything. And remember, truth is often hiding in plain sight.